Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Jaya Radha Gopinata, Radha Gopinata, Shri Radhe. Gopinata, Radha Gopinata, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya. Jam Vishnupad Param Sivaraj Kacharya Shtodhara Shati Swankri Sabhacharan Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jaya Anantakoti Vaishnavarinda Ki Jaya Krantarachima Bhagavatam Ki Jaya Nitya Premanande Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we are reading 2nd Canto, chapter 10, text 6. Nirodhasya shayanam, Nirodhasya shayanam, Atmanaha sa shaktibihi, Atmanaha saha shaktibihi, Muktir hitvan yatarupam, Muktirhitvan yatarupam Swarupena vyavastitihi Swarupena vyavastitihi Nirodasyano shayanam Atmanaha sa shaktibihi Muktirhitvan yatarupam Swarupena vyavastitihi Atmanaha sa shaktibihi Muktirhitvan yatarupam Swarupena vyavastitihi Nirodhasyano shayanam Atmanaha sa shaktibihi Muktirhitvan yatarupam Swarupena vyavastitihi Nirodha. The winding up of the cosmic manifestation. Asya, of his. Anushayanam, the lying down of the Purusha incarnation. Mahavishnu, in mystic slumber. Atmanaha, of the living entities. Saha, along with. Shaktivihi, with the energies. Muktihi, liberation. Hitva, giving up. Anyata, otherwise. Rupam, form. Swarupena, in constitutional form. Vyavastitihi, permanent situation. Translation and purpose by His Divine Grace of Acharya Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The merging of the living entity along with his conditional living tendency with the mystic lying down of the Mahavishnu is called the winding up of the cosmic manifestation. Liberation is the permanent situation of the form of the living entity after he gives up the changeable gross and subtle material bodies. Purport. As we have discussed several times, there are two types of living entities. Most of them are ever liberated or nitya muktas, while some of them are ever conditioned. The ever conditioned souls are apt to develop a mentality of lording over the material nature, and therefore the material cosmic creation is manifested to give the ever conditioned souls two kinds of facilities. One facility is that the conditioned soul can act according to his tendency to lord it over the cosmic manifestation. And the other facility gives the conditioned soul a chance to come back to Godhead. So after the winding up of the cosmic manifestation, most of the conditioned souls merge into the existence of the Mahavishnu, personality of Godhead, lying in this mystic slumber, to be created again in the next creation. But some of the conditioned souls who follow the transcendental sound in the form of Vedic literatures and are thus able to go back to Godhead, attain spiritual and original bodies after quitting the conditional gross and subtle material bodies. The material conditional bodies develop out of the living entity's forgetfulness of their relationship with Godhead, and during the course of the cosmic manifestation, the conditioned souls are given a chance to revive the original status of life with the help of revealed scriptures, so mercifully compiled by the Lord in His different incarnations. Reading or hearing of such transcendental literatures helps one become liberated even in the conditional state of material existence. All the Vedic literatures aim at devotional service to the personality of Godhead, and as soon as one is fixed upon this point, he at once becomes liberated from conditional life. The material gross and subtle forms are simply due to the conditioned soul's ignorance, and as soon as he is fixed in the devotional service of the Lord, he becomes eligible to be freed from the conditioned state. This devotional service is transcendental attraction for the Supreme on account of His being the source of all pleasing humors. Everyone is after some pleasure of humor for enjoyment, but does not know the Supreme source of all attraction. Rasavaisaha rasam yevayam laptvananti bhavati. The Vedic hymns inform everyone about the Supreme source of all pleasure. The unlimited fountainhead of all pleasure is the personality of Godhead, and one who is fortunate enough to get this information through transcendental literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam becomes permanently liberated to occupy his proper place in the kingdom of God. Om Akirati Mirandasya Grananjana Shalakaya Chaksharon Militam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So today I wasn't aware, we are the very famous verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, namely the one that Srila Prabhupada quotes many times because it describes the constitutional position of the living entity, Svarupena Vyavastitihi, and how this is attained. Namely, when one gives up, as Prabhupada says in the translation, after he gives up the changeable, gross and subtle material bodies. So, in other words, we know at the time of death, every living entity has, as by nature's law, has to give up the gross body, and the soul, along with the subtle body, transmigrates to another body, as it is, as per their karma, as it will be awarded. So that's the cycle of birth and death, and that's how the conditioned souls transmigrate in this 8.4 million species within one breath of Lord Mahavishnu, as we hear here. Or actually, living entities are much more short-lived. There's within one breath of Mahavishnu, there's the manifestation of one universe, the duration of a whole universe. So that's the lifetime of Lord Brahma, as we know. And which is more than 311 trillion years, and according to our human calculation. And we know each day of Brahma there is partial dissolution, even. So what to speak of the whole lifetime of Lord Brahma? But so that's how the conditioned souls transmigrate along with the subtle bodies. But only when we are able to give up the subtle body as well. In other words, false ego, intelligence, and the mind, then we are actually able to attain real liberation, and thus be situated in our position as eternal servants of the Lord, going back to Godhead. It's a very beautiful, famous verse, and it also it describes the second part of it is the liberation of the real liberation of the living entities, and the first part describes the binding, how the cosmic manifestation is wound up when Mahavishnu lies. He always lies down on the causal ocean, but when he breathes in, then we know everything is, the whole universe, all the universes are dissolved. And at that time, as it is described here, the living entities who did not achieve liberation, were not able to give up their subtle bodies. In other words, the conditioned nature of wanting to still lord over this material nature, which is with most living entities the case, unfortunately. So those at that time also merge along with the material elements back into the body of Mahavishnu. And actually it's described first, we merge back into Lord Brahma, and then all the Brahmas merge into the Lord. Although, of course, like our Lord Brahma, for example, is a pure devotee, so but still he does that. I think we heard in a recent class, or somewhere I heard it, maybe His Holiness Panu Maharaj, I can't remember, that still he does it as a service, Lord Brahma, if he is a pure devotee, to also still take the living entities then back into Mahavishnu, and he himself, of course, goes back to the spiritual world then, if he is a pure devotee, like in case of our Lord Brahma, the head of our Sampradaya. And so let's briefly look through the purport. So first Srila Prabhupada discusses that there's those two types of living entities, namely Nitya Muktas and Nitya Baddhas. And ever liberated or ever conditioned. As we know in the material world, generally we find only Nitya Buddhas, those who are ever conditioned by material nature, because as we know, no one knows except for the Lord when we made this mistake of wanting to enjoy separately from Him, wanting to give up our constitutional position as eternal servant, and thus we're thrown into this ocean of material existence. So that's the Nitya Buddhas, and whereas the Nitya Muktas are those who never do this mistake, who are always fully fixed in their loving service to the Lord. And so Prabhupada then further explains that the material world has those two purposes, two facilities it provides to the living entities. First one is that what most people think, as Prabhupada says here, that it provides the material nature the facility for the living entities to try to enjoy to the Lord over material nature. But we know that is not the ultimate purpose. That is only, yes, the Lord does it because in order to give facility for the living entities to express their free will, in that case actually in a wrong way, but still it is free will, so we have, in order for unconditional love to be there to the Lord from the living entities, there needs to be the facility to also misuse the free will. And so that is what the first facility of the cosmic manifestation does. It gives facility to the living entities to try to enjoy forgetting the Lord, thinking this energy, even though it is also, and of course everything is emanation of the Lord, it's also an energy of the Lord, but the potency of Maya is such that it gives us this illusion of thinking this is, we are separate from the Lord and this is separate from the Lord, that we can just completely forget about Krishna and think ourselves as little lords, as dominating the material energy in whatever way and trying to get at some enjoyment. But more importantly is the second facility it provides. Simultaneously, the Lord doesn't throw us into misery perpetually, but rather He gives us also the facility to go back home, back to Godhead. And as Prabhupada then further discusses, this is particularly this mercy He gives especially through the scriptures, in which He gives the living entities the knowledge how they can actually get out again. And not only directly get out, but we know the Vedas are so merciful that they give full knowledge also for the living entities how to, while they're still attached, while they don't want to go back to Godhead, while at least make proper use of this facility that the Lord gave for lording over. It's, in other words, the Lord doesn't just create and throw us into here, but He creates, and along with the creation of the universe itself, He also gives us the manual by which we can learn how to make proper use of it. How to make proper use of it in terms of, like for those who are attached to material enjoyment, through karma kanda, giving the process how to perform sacrifices with the aim of simply getting material benefits, and by worshipping the demigods and Lord Vishnu as the chief beneficiary, and also and thus become so-called materially happy, and do it in a regulated way where you can perform good karma and thus have good material facilities. Janmashva Shruta Shribhya, to get nice birth, have good opulence, good education, and the beauty to be able to have nice sense gratification. But we know that is only a concession of the Lord. It doesn't please Him, obviously, to give us that. But as we said, the free will is there, and so the Lord is so merciful. He gives us full facilities for that. But more importantly than the Vedas, as we know, Sarvasya cha hamaridis anavishta matta smriti jnanam apohanam cha vedaischa aham sarva vedya vedanta krit veda videva chaham. So by all the Vedas I am to be known, and I am the compiler of the Vedanta. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So as we know, ultimately the Vedas point to the conclusion that we should give up this foolish mentality of trying to be happy separately from the Lord and again surrender to the Lord and give Him all our love. But as we know, just by studying the Vedas, that is practically impossible to actually even theoretically understand. Like those who are not coming through, following disciplic succession, they even by studying already they are confused. What to speak of then being able to engage in the proper process of realizing that. We know Bhakti Yoga, it depends on so much on mercy. It's not something that we can do by our strength, our endeavors. So that is why, yes, the knowledge is there. And so, in other words, we know also the Vedas are called as one of our mothers, because, yeah, they take care of us. They give us all the facilities, protection and everything. Actually, how to live here in this material world. And also, but the mother alone is not enough. We also need a father. And who is our real father? It is if we find a spiritual master, then he is the real father. He is the one who can really guide us how to take the knowledge of the Vedas, how to understand it first of all, and then how to apply it properly to get full benefit. In other words, to be able to give up this changeable, gross and subtle material bodies and get liberation, as we hear in today's verse. And so, yeah, thus Prabhupada then further points out that actually all the Vedic literatures aim at devotional service to the personality of Godhead, and as soon as one is fixed upon this point, he at once becomes liberated from conditional life. So, yeah, even though generally those who study the Vedas, they do that for, mostly for karma kanda, in other words, still for material enjoyment. But actually, as Prabhupada says, it is, if one is intelligent, then one always looks for the conclusion. One doesn't waste his time studying just details and not with the seeing the actual conclusion of whatever is given. That is, being that in normal mundane studies, if you do, the most important thing is always to understand and act according to the conclusion. So that is why someone who is intelligently studying the Vedas, he can understand that actually it points to devotional service. But as we said, on our own that is practically impossible. That's why only self-realized souls can understand that, and they also don't do it themselves, studying the whole Vedas and then coming to them, making their own conclusion, but rather, that's the beauty of Parampara, that it is readily turned out already right from the beginning, that we don't have to go through all the Vedas, but Krishna himself speaks, for example, the Bhagavad Gita, where he clearly tells what needs to be done for full perfection, and then also Srimad Bhagavatam is given by those great self-realized souls, originally, as we recently heard, in the 4 seed verses by the Lord himself to Lord Brahma, who then, through Parampara, then expanded it to Narad Muni, who further expanded it to Vyasadeva, and that's how we, through then further disciplic succession, got it and are reading it now. And so that's the mercy of the Vedas is there. It gives us all the knowledge, and then equally or even more important is then the mercy of the spiritual master of the Parampara to actually really get the knowledge in a readily available form and be able to act on it. And so Prabhupada then further talks about that the living entity, we are all seeking pleasure. We are all looking for different humors, in other words, different tastes or varieties of enjoyment. But the living entity in the conditioned state completely forgot that actually there's only one person who has all those humors in perfection, and that is Krishna, Sri Sri Radha Gopinath. Only he is the reservoir of all pleasure, unlimitedly, eternally, and so only if we in our loving relationship with Him, can we actually also taste all these different humours in perfection. Otherwise, in the material world, we know the whole material world is simply a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. And thus, any humours, any different varieties of enjoyment that we find here, it's simply a shadow of what is there in its perfection in the spiritual world. And yeah, that's why in the material world we know the nature of enjoyment is such that you're never fully satisfied, and then also it is very quickly over, and you're always looking for, where can I get more better enjoyment. Whereas in the spiritual world, you're also in one sense never satisfied, because it's unlimited, and Krishna is unlimited, so you always want to give more pleasure to Krishna, and in that way automatically you yourself taste more pleasure, but that is not your mentality to wanting to yourself seek pleasure, but rather your pleasure automatically comes by seeking the pleasure of Krishna, as we know. But yeah, that is in a spiritual sense, but otherwise, of course, one is spiritually situated, one is Atmaram, which in other words, one never has any desire for oneself, or could never be any reason for not being satisfied with oneself, but one always wants to give more pleasure to the Lord. And so Prabhupada says that's why the Vedic hymns inform everyone about the supreme source of all pleasure. The unlimited fountainhead of all pleasure is the personality of Godhead, and one who is fortunate enough to get this information through transcendental literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam becomes permanently liberated to occupy his proper place in the kingdom of God. So yeah, that's actually such a basic but also beautiful point that we learn from, especially from Srimad Bhagavatam, that we are not real enjoyers, we are not real Purushas, we are Prakriti, we are meant for the Lord's enjoyment, but that alone, if your conditioned soul hears, it's not very inspiring, because we want to be enjoyer, and if someone tells, hey, you're not, then you just get, go away, I want to try to enjoy. But rather, Srimad Bhagavatam also gives us this clear, beautiful knowledge about how rather Krishna, he is really the supreme enjoyer. His enjoyment is completely inconceivable of what we could ever think of. And when we hear about that, then that actually gives us such pleasure. And first of all, it smashes our false ego, that we makes it so clear that what can we enjoy? Even if we imagine the greatest material enjoyment, it can never even compare to a drop of how Krishna is enjoying. And then when we hear of all those different pastimes of the Lord and His devotees, we see that yes, He is the real enjoyer. What can I enjoy? So maybe it would really be better to give up this foolish mentality, to try to lord it over, and rather try to participate in His enjoyment. Because that is the beauty, that when you live in harmony with the Lord's desire. In other words, when you serve Him, try to give pleasure to Him, then automatically you are part of this unlimited enjoyment that the Lord has. You are also able to experience that. And so as we know, there's so many examples, like famous, of course, for very obvious especially for a conditioned mind, is that the Lord in Dwarka married more than 16,000 wives in all different extremely opulent palaces, and one can never even think closely to that any human being would be able to do that. And what to speak of Krishna? Of course, he never had struggles anywhere in any case. So also he would never have to struggle of, how can I maintain all those wives? How can I provide for them? Obviously he's unlimitedly rich, and he himself can expand unlimitedly, as we know from this past in particularly, that he didn't have to compromise in his loving dealings with any of his queens. He was able to be with them at the end, every time when he wanted, with every single one of them, and giving his full attention to every one of them. Whereas, what can we, even if we would have great material facilities and able to marry many wives, then still we ourselves could never be able to interact with every one of them at all times and give our full attention. And our attention anyway, what is the worth of our attention? We don't know the other person really, and thus we can never perfectly reciprocate. But the Lord, He knows perfectly. He is in the heart of every living entity. He is omniscient, and He knows better than we ourselves what we actually need, what we actually desire, and how we can actually be happy. And in case of His interactions with His pure devotees, of course, how He knows at every moment how to get, or rather, give the facility in a way that the devotee can give and experience the greatest love at every moment with the Lord. So, we're on time now. So, and as Prabhupada points out also in the purport, the importance of reading or hearing of such transcendental literatures, that helps one become liberated even in the conditional state of material existence. So that's the beauty of Srimad Bhagavatam and all the literatures, that even while we're in this material world, simply by hearing it, we associate with the Lord, and we slowly, these changeable gross, especially subtle bodies, gross body that comes at the time of death, but the subtle body gets dissolved even while we are here. Our false ego gets reduced, and our mind and intelligence gets purified, that we are able to think and more for the pleasure of Krishna rather than in illusion seeking separate enjoyment. So, thank you for your attention. Shima, quick question? Or? Well, I don't fully know, but memory actually it's function of intelligence, not of mind, as far as I know, in terms of the subtle body. But further, brain is not a part of any of the subtle body, but brain is like the hardware, and subtle body is then maybe, I don't know if you can compare the software then, but because it is, scientists, I think it is said that when a certain parts of the brain get damaged, then you lose certain memory. So yes, it is there. But in terms of the first part of the question, that the Lord gives remembrance and forgetfulness. Still, even if the hardware if the memory is there in our gross and subtle body, but to be able to access it, that is still a different question. And for that, we always depend on the Lord. He can always choose what He makes us remember and forget. And and most importantly, we know it refers to the Lord giving us remembrance of Him or forgetfulness of Him. And that depends on, because He knows what we desire and what we, Okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.